Hey guys, tonight we slip into the soft, sun-drenched world of a Byzantine silk weaver in the year 532 AD. You wake not to an alarm, but to the distant clang of church bells, the Hagia Sophia's domes still gleaming from last night's moonlit procession. The air smells of warm beeswax and the faint metallic temps of divats simmering next door. Your back protests as you roll off the thin straw mattress, because, let's be honest, ergonomic workspace won't be invented for another 1,500 years. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment below with where you're re-listening from and what time it is. Whether you're in Tokyo at 3 a.m. or Oslo at midnight. We're all drifting through history together tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle barefoot across the packed earth floor of your one-room apartment. The cool morning air already thickening with the scent of baking flatbread from the street vendor downstairs. Your luma hulking wooden beast takes up half the room, its warp threads stretched taut like the strings of a lyre. Historians still argue whether Byzantine weavers hummed hymns or cursed under their breath while working. But given the blisters on your fingers, I'd bet on the latter. Fun fact, the Byzantines didn't just make silk, they weaponized it. While the Chinese guarded their silkworms like state secrets, Emperor Justinian's spies smuggled cocoons out in hollowed-out walking sticks. But here's the quirky bit. Some scholars think the famous purple room of the imperial palace was tea-dye with rare murex shells at all. They suspect it was colored with crushed beetles and a lot of creative storytelling. You yawn, stretching out the stiffness in your shoulders. Outside, the street's coming alive with the clatter of donkey carts and the rhythmic thunk of the neighborhood baker kneading dough. A slave boy from the workshop next door ducks in with your daily ration of olive oil today. Patch suspiciously watery, and you trade him a scrap of yesterday's bread for gossip. The Persian merchants at the docks are offering indigo dye at half price, which either means they stole it or it's secretly mud. Either way, your foreman will probably buy it. The morning sun slants through the narrow window of your workshop, illuminating dust motes dancing above the loom like tiny golden conspirators. Your fingers move automatically, passing the shuttle back and forth in a rhythm. So practiced you could do it in your sleep, and some days you practically do. The silk thread glides smooth as water between your calloused fingertips. Each pass of the shuttle, adding another whisper-soft line to the growing tapestry of imperial purple destined for who knows which pompous, official. Historians still argue whether Byzantine silk workshops were sweatshops or prestigious art studios. But judging by the way your foreman paces behind you counting every thread, it's probably a bit of both. Here's a mainstream fact to ponder. That luxurious silk you're weaving, it's literally worth its weight in gold. Justinian's code actually fixed prices. 1 pound of silk for 1 pound of gold, which explains why the imperial guards at the workshop door look like they re-guarding Mount Olympus itself. But here's the quirky tidbit your history teacher never mentioned. The secret ingredient that makes Byzantine silk shimmer so brilliantly, a carefully guarded mixture of egg whites and seawater brushed onto the finished fabric. And if you think that sounds like a weird omelet ingredient, wait until you hear about the quality control process. They derub the silk between 2 elephant tusks to test its smoothness. Because nothing says luxury fabric like pachyderm dental work. You pause to stretch your aching back, glancing at the other weavers in the long, low-ceilinged workshop. To your left, old man Theophilus is muttering to himself as he untangles a snarl of thread, something about damned Persian knots, while you, Lydia to your right, works with her usual quiet intensity, her quick fingers making your own movements feel clumsy by comparison. The rhythmic clack-clack of a dozen looms fills the air, punctuated by the occasional curse when someone snaps a thread. A sudden commotion at the door makes everyone look up. It's the imperial inspector, his nose perpetually wrinkled as if he's smelled something unpleasant. He runs his fingers over Lydia's nearly finished bolt of cloth with the reverence of a priest handling holy relics, then nods approvingly before moving to your station. You hold your breath as his critical eye examines your work, his fingers probing for impression. When he grunts and moves on without comment, you release the breath you didn't realize you'd have been holding another day without being flogged for substandard work. As the inspector moves down the line, Theophilus leans over and whispers, "Heard a rumor the Persians have developed a new red dye, supposedly brighter than anything we've got." You snort quietly. If that were true, the emperor would have already sent half the army to steal the recipe. Still, the thought lingers as you return to your weaving, the shuttle moving back and forth like the pendulum of some enormous fabric-making clock. Your fingers trace the intricate web of threads stretched across the loom, each one positioned with mathematical precision. This wooden beast before you isn't just a tool, it's an instrument of near-magical transformation, turning simple threads into fabrics worthy of empire. The vertical warp threads stand taut as soldiers at attention, while your shuttle darts between them like a smuggler in the night, leaving behind the horizontal weft that slowly builds your masterpiece. Historians still argue whether Byzantine looms were adapted from Egyptian designs or inspired by Chinese innovations, but one thing's certain. Yours is a temperamental creature that seems to know exactly when to snap a thread at the most inconvenient moment. Here is a mainstream fact to lull you deeper into our textile trance. The average Byzantine loom could produce about 1 foot of intricate silk fabric per day. That means the robe you're working on with its complex geometric borders will take nearly 3 months to complete. But here's the delightfully odd detail you won't find in most history books. Weavers often kept pet geckos in their workshops to control insects. These little lizards were considered good luck charms, and some even believed their sticky feet could magically prevent thread tangles. You smile as your own workshop gecko, a scrawny little thing named Leo, scampers across the wall chasing a moth. The rhythmic clack of the heddle's changing position creates a soothing percussion as you work. Each pass of the shuttle builds the paterno repeating motif of interlocking circles that will eventually form the border of an ecclesiastical vestment. Your hands know these movements so well, you could probably weave in your sleep. And some mornings after too much cheap wine, you practically do. A sudden snap makes you curse under your breathineth of broken thread. You reach for your toolkit, a collection of bone needles, beeswax for smoothing frayed ends, and a curious little tool. Modern archaeologists still debate the purpose of. Some say it's a thread counter, others insist it's a primitive tension gauge. You just know it helps fix mistakes like this. As you carefully repair the break, your mind wanders to the stories woven into these very threads. Some say the red silk currently on your loom came from worms that fed on mulberry leaves, grown in the same soil where Alexander the Great once camped. Whether that's true or just workshop legend matters little, it makes the tedious work feel more significant somehow. The afternoon sun slants through the high windows, now casting the geometric shadow of your loom across the workshop floor. Somewhere in the city, a church choir begins their Vespers chant, the melody drifting in through the open windows. Your hands keep moving, the shuttle dancing back and forth, as the fabric grows almost imperceptibly with each passing hour. The sharp tang of vinegar and something distinctly briny assaults your nose as you step into the dye master's domain, a dim, cavernous workspace where rainbows go to die in the most expensive way possible. Vats bubble like witches, cauldrons, each containing hues so vibrant they seem stolen from the sunset itself. Old Kyrillo stands hunched over his prized purple vat, stirring the simmering liquid with a rod that's probably older than you are. Historians still argue whether dyers developed their famous purple through careful experimentation or happy accidents. One persistent legend claims the shade was discovered when a dog ate some sea snails and drooled on a white tunic. Here is the mainstream fact that'll make your inner artist sigh. That legendary Tyrian purple required about 10,000 crushed murex shellfish to produce enough dye for a single robe. No wonder emperors declared it illegal for commoners to wear this. Wasn't just a color, it was liquid monarchy. But here's the bizarre tidbit that never made the history books. Some dyers added fermented barley water to their vats, believing the fermentation gases helped open up the fabric to receive color better. The side effect: workshops smelled like a brewery crossed with a fish market. Your eyes water as Kyrillos lifts a dripping length of silk from the vat, already transforming from pale yellow to a deep, shimmering violet before your eyes. Too much sunlight ruins the color, the old man grumbles as he squints at your newly woven bolt of fabric. He runs his stained fingers along the edge, muttering about amateur tension, before grudgingly admitting it'll take the dye well enough. You watch as he submerges it in a pre-treatment bath of alamandus. That urine? Yes, definitely urine. Kyrillos catches your look and shrugs. The Egyptian stuff works best, but beggars can't be choosers. A commotion at the doorway interrupts the lesson in ancient chemistry. 2 imperial guards drag in a shaking merchant, tossing a bundle of crimson fabric at Kyrillos' feet. Counterfeit. One guard barks. The dye master examines it briefly before snorting. Madder and Kermes insects. Good attempt. But he rubs the fabric between his fingers, showing the reddish residue left behind. True purple doesn't bleed. The merchant Eswa fades as he has dragged away another would-be profiteer, learning the hard way that dye fraud carried the same penalty as treason. As you leave, Kyrillos presses a small pouch into your hand. For your personal project, he murmurs. Inside, a precious teaspoon of the real stuff, enough to add imperial purple accents to that scarf you've been secretly weaving for the dyer's daughter. The weight of the gift settles in your stomach like a lead weight. Either this is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for you, or you're now indebted to the scariest old man in Constantinople. The midday sun beats down mercilessly as you shuffle across the workshop courtyard, your sandals kicking up little puffs of dust with each step. Your stomach growls loud enough to startle a nearby chicken pecking at the ground. Turns out, weaving imperial silks burns more calories than you'd think. You join the queue at the food stall where old Eleni has been doling out the same barley bread and lentil stew since Emperor Anastasius was in diapers. Historians still argue whether Byzantine workers actually enjoyed their ubiquitous barley bread or just pretended to because wheat was too expensive. Here's a mainstream fact to chew on. The average laborer's lunch consisted of bread, olives, and the occasional bit of cheese, about 2,500 calories worth to fuel all that manual labor. But that's the quirky tidbit that explains why you always check your bread carefully. Some bakers added sawdust to stretch their flour further, leading to the charming Byzantine saying, "A wise man chews each bite 30 times if he values his teeth." You settle onto a shady patch of wall next to Lydia, who is already tearing into her bread with the enthusiasm of someone who has eaten since yesterday. The stew tastes like nostalgia and poverty, heavy on the lentils, light on anything resembling meat, with just enough garlic to convince your body it's getting proper nutrition. Did you hear about the monk? Lydia whispers, between bites. You raise an eyebrow as she leans in closer. They say he arrived last night from Sirica with a walking staff full of ... Her voice drops even lower. Silkworm eggs, you nearly choke on your bread. If true, this would violate about 17 imperial decrees and probably get the poor fool flayed alive. But it would also explain the sudden increase in palace guards near the divats this morning. Across the courtyard, a group of Persian merchants argue loudly with a customs official. One waves a bolt of crimson fabric that looks suspiciously like the counterfeit purple from yesterday's drama. You catch snippets of the conversations, something about new dye techniques from Hind, half the price of your sea snails. The official looks tempted but shakes his head firmly. Smart man, the last merchant who sold unauthorized red silk ended up providing entertainment at the hippodrome as part of the lion-feeding show. As you scrape the last of the stew from your bowl, the workshop bell clangs ominously. Back to the loom. You stretch, feeling every vertebra pop in, protest, and notice Theophilus slipping something from the Persian merchants as the guards aren't looking. Could be spices, could be contraband dye, could be trouble. You make a mental note to sit far from him during the next imperial inspection.